Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Today is part 2 with Matt Nover. Now you might remember, Matt was actually in pro basketball as a pro basketball player, toured the world, played with some amazing teams, and decided to change things up and get himself into medical device sales. Started off at the top, at the rep level, and then took himself all the way to director of clinical sales, which is a position he has now at TELA. And this is a great episode for all of you that are currently in the field and for those of you that want to get into medical device sales, because he goes into how sales, people on sales teams, how they really should approach their territory, what their focus should be, and especially if they want to get into leadership, how they need to think about that next step. And he talks about it, what it looks like from the rep level, from a regional manager level, and all the way to the director of clinical sales level. So, as always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode.
Here's how. It's just like in sports. If I'm going into the game, I'm going to go play basketball, and I'm only thinking about I got to get 20 points and I got to get 10 rebounds, right? If that's my only worry about the points in my stats, then I'm not focused on each play. I'm not looking at this possession and how I'm playing defense and how I'm adjusting help side and how the ball is going up and I'm making sure I block out to get the rebound. If I'm worried about those small details, then I'll get 10, 15 rebounds. See what I'm saying? If I'm go down to offense and I'm making sure that I set the right screening angle and that we're setting up the play correctly and that my man and I'm reading my man and then making the moves off of that man, then I'll score baskets, I'll get open jump shots, I'll get to the free throw line, I'll score my 20 points. So it's the same thing in our space. So if you come into a med device company and you have expectations and you have a quota and they're saying you have to grow the territory from this number to that number, if that's all you're focused on, it's going to be a lot of pressure. So what do? You step back and say, okay, what are the success principles? What are the behaviors that I need to have top of mind? What do I need to learn? And what do I need to do on a daily to move a surgeon or a customer from one conversation to the next, to the next, and to the next? And if I just focus on each conversation with each customer and making sure I don't leave that conversation, for example, without a next step in play, right, and without an agreement between that person, be it an OR director or a scrub nurse or a thoracic surgeon. If I've met them and I'm not setting in the next steps before I leave, then I'm not setting myself up for success, if that makes sense. So it's all about the moment. It's all about building a relationship in the moment and taking that next step with that relationship to build trust mostly, and then make sure that you're advancing the interaction to another level. It's always the next frequency,
So you're saying with that approach, because I want to make sure this is really, I like this. What you're saying with your approach that you just discussed right now, the type of rep that's only focused on the numbers, the type of rep that's looking at the full business like you are, they both want the same thing. But you're saying by doing it with a more open perspective and considering daily behaviors that will lead you to the numbers instead of stressing the numbers each day, you're going to be more successful, or you're going to be in a better position to go into leadership later in your career?
Well, definitely into leadership, but definitely you'll be more successful if you just want to be a career rep, right? And you want to make your commission and you want to excel and you're not interested in leadership or advancement, that's fine. But it's the same for both. So if you're a sales rep, I believe that you'll be more successful if you're focusing on the daily activities and your process and your education and you're living in the moment. If you're focusing on that, the results will come. Of course, you have to know what your number is. Of course, you better have a tracker. You better have a plan, right? You better know what your numbers are. You better know them real well and know where you need to get. But then by tracking that and understanding, okay, well, I'm supposed to get 4K of hernia business or product sales from Dr. Smith, down in Mercy Hospital. What have I done to engage him this month, right? What have I done? Have I got him in front of a peer-to-peer? Have I invited him to our labs yet, right? Instead of worrying about, oh my gosh, I got to call the scheduler. And I've done this before. I got to call a scheduler, make sure I get the case. Or I got to pop into the OR and pressure him to use my product. See, that's thinking about the number. And that's worried about getting numbers and feeling pressure and being in a desperate type of situation. Which, look, closers, that's what like the typical closer mentality is. I'm going to close the business. I'm going to go make sure he does it. And we know that there's all kinds of reps in the business that do this pressure sale. And that is also, not as effective anymore. What really matters is, what are you doing to get them more interested, that it's their decision to use your product, not your sales pitch. It's their decision. They've decided, man, you know what, this is the best solution based on the company, based on what they've shared with me, based on how they purposely designed this product, based on what the other surgeons' experiences that they share with me and the success those other surgeons are having. You know what? It's good for me. I'm going to use it. So you're just going to see a lot more success to hitting your number if you do all those things,
That's really interesting. And I noticed you said that there's, it's not like, you said something really specific that I want to highlight. You said it's not like that anymore. As if there used to be a sell where that hard close, that pressure sale was the standard and it was effective. And something happened and now it's lost its effectiveness. What would you attribute that shift to being?
Fatigue, man. Nobody likes to be pressured, right? But I think corporate America and big sales, sales traditionally was about, you got to go close the business.
Right.
And also another word that I think we need to get rid of is probing questions, right? Nobody likes to be probed. This isn't like, aliens coming down and probing us and trying to get into our body. Like probing questions, to me, I never understood it. When I first got into it, Samuel, they would talk about second and third and fourth level probing questions. And I'm like, what do you mean by probing questions? Like, what are we trying to do with that? It sounds invasive, right?
Right.
So instead of thinking about probing people and diving in and bothering them and peppering them with questions like a customer or surgeon, why are you doing this? What are you doing? What are you using now? Well, what about ours, right? It's more about finding an understanding. You want to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, right? And once you understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, what's important to them, then you can use whatever solution you think you have that's better maybe than what they're currently doing that would give them a benefit. And that making that connection instead of probing them and then pressuring them to say, look, you got to use this, or will you use it? Keep asking them to use it without clarifying any need. I think that's what, the more successful sales folks are doing. And that's long lasting. Right? Like there's great closers out there. There's great sales folks traditionally, when I meant that can get out there and somehow they get so in the face of the surgeon. They're so engaging. They have a really engaging personality, for example, right? They're really high type A people. They're fun to be with, right? They love going golfing and they'll take the surgeon golfing and they'll take them out to dinner and they'll really engage and have a lot of fun. The surgeon feels like, well, I should buy from that guy. Like, he keeps asking me, I should buy from that guy or that girl, because they keep asking me, they don't leave me alone, so let me buy. Well, as soon as that rep is gone, what happens to that business?
The relationship's terminated.
Right? The surgeon doesn't care because he's not bought into anything really. On the other hand, if you've already developed that need, that surgeon really sees a reason why that product is good, why he loves working with your company and your organization, and he has deep reasons for that, then even if that rep were to leave, and this is what I do as a leader now, right? So now we're going into leadership. This is what I do as a leader. If I know that the rep has done it the right way, if that rep has to move on, or if that rep gets promoted to leadership in our company, I'm going to have to replace them with another rep. Well, I want to make sure that that new rep can step right in and take over that relationship and continue providing a great solution to that surgeon because of what was already built before that. So that I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of
it did. And one other thing I was going to kind of allude to and highlight is there has actually been a noted shift in customer buying behavior, where millennials make up the majority of the decision makers now, and are going to continue to make up more of the majority of decision makers. And the way millennials have been brought up, it's less about the one-on-one in-person interaction, and it's more about a digital interaction with minimal in-person
interaction. And when there is in-person interaction, they want it from a reference point, from a point of, answer my specific questions, help me identify my specific need, don't sell me anything. So that's why, that's why I was asking you about this shift, because we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it. In COVID, it was a catalyst to push this even faster, right? Now, like you said, customers are saying, well, during COVID, we were able to utilize your business a bit and do the thing we want to do. Why do we need to see you now? What's the point? So how do you train your reps to continue to keep the ball rolling? And you're saying by having this type of sell, by having this approach where, look, all I want to do is make sure I understand what you need, and whatever you need, I'm going to have it dialed down to the T and provide a solution to what it is you need. And I'm not going to be trying to push or force anything.
No, because it has to be your decision, customer Smith, right? It's got to be your decision. I want you to know that it's right for you, not because I'm telling you it's right for you, but because you really believe it's right for you. And that's the key. And how do we do that is, again, by truly showing you care, man. Like even millennials now, like they want to know, do you care about me, right? And the social media is all about, like, if you're joining someone and you're following someone, it's all about what they feel they're getting out of them that by following, right? And it's a connection. So we got to build that connection with people. We got to be likable. But in our industry, man, you have to build trust, and you have to live every day with integrity. So I always tell my team, look, if you're going to do something or you're going to tell somebody something, do it. Whatever you say, follow up on it. Do it. Don't tell somebody you're going to go, like when you're talking to a surgeon and he works with residents. And I've seen this on a number of times. The surgeon will say, you know what, your product's really interesting. It's new technology in the hernia space, in the hernia device arena. Can you go share that with my residents, the 2-year resident group, right? And the rep is probably thinking 2 years, they're not even going to be in surgery for like 3 more years, right? Because they're only second year and they've got to go 4 or 5 years and they might do a fellowship. I'm not going to waste my time with 2-year residents telling them about new innovative technology. I've got more important stuff to do to get my number. Well, that could be a big mistake. Because what if the surgeon comes back and asks you, hey, how'd that meeting go? Did you connect with my residents? And what are you going to tell them, right? Because he's going to ask the residents as well, did Matt talk to you about the new product in the hernia space? And they're going to be like, no, not yet. So right there, you're losing trust, you're losing respect, and you're not living with integrity, right? And so these things are so important. And being aware of that, of how these people, of how each customer is looking at us and what they're thinking about us. In our space, it's just like when I would go play basketball overseas. Every time you went there as an American, Sam, you were looked at with suspicion, because Americans were kind of looked at as a little bit arrogant, a little bit like they thought they were the best. They didn't have to learn anything about us here in Italy or here in Portugal. They were just going to come here and ball and tell us what to do and be the leader. Well, there's a lot to that, right? But the point is that every time I went to a team, I noticed a little bit of a wall was put up. Well, in the hernia or in the medical device space, surgeons, when they see the salesman come in with a pitch and say that they've got a lunch, they're like, okay, what do you got? Right? That's how they greet you. Hey, Matt, what's up? What do you got? What are you selling today? And so especially when you're new, you're going to hear that a lot. You have to dial it back and say, you know what, Doc, I think I've got a wonderful product. I'd love to share it with you. But before I even get to that and tell you about our story, I just want to introduce myself, get to know you a little bit, and understand your practice. I really appreciate this time with you, the ability to meet, to bring your staff, lunch. And I'd really love to educate you on what we're doing to innovate the market. But first of all, what are you doing for your patients, right? What's important to you? Like, what type of patients are you having? Why? What does your procedures look like? And why do you use that procedure? And currently, what is your mesh choice? And why do you use that mesh, for example? And I just want to get some understanding and see what you're doing, to see even if we have a solution, because we have a great tool, but I don't know if it's a good tool for you. I don't know if it's a good tool for you to use on your patients. So I just like to learn about that first before I tell you what we've got.
Excellent. And you've seen the success of your own reps when they take that approach.
What's that?
You've seen the success with your own reps when they take that approach.
Oh yeah. Well, we're again with COVID, they're hesitant to do it. Why? Because they haven't been able to get in front of surgeons for months. And when they finally get a meeting, they want to make the most of it. So they're like, well, Matt, how am I going to take time to talk about them and show them that I care about their practice when I'm trying to get a case and I may not see them for another 6 months?
What do you tell them?
I tell them you're going to stand out if you are more honest, and that they can look at you and say, you know what, this guy didn't come here to sell me. He came here to learn about me, to understand me, because he cares. If you do that, you will see you'll be able to get a meeting easier next time. It won't take you 6 months, right? Because when you call the office and the office scheduler says, well, let me check with Dr. Jones, and she goes, hey, that guy from TELA or that girl from TELA wants to meet with you again. If you didn't make a cool connection on a human level and you were pushy or you just spoke the whole time, diarrhea of the mouth, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I don't even remember that person. No lunch. But if you made a connection and they're like, oh yeah, I remember Matt, or I remember Shelly, they were really talking about, my patients and, whatever it is, they made a connection. Yeah, go ahead and schedule. I'll see her again. And so we see success that way. And it works, because that can be that's a problem. Nobody has time for reps anymore. Our administration doesn't have time for us. So we really have to identify what's important to them, not what's important to us. And if we go into every engagement, every email, every video email, every time we drop off a letter, it's all about what's important to them. I have to think about them, not myself. And again, that's the process, right, Samuel? If you're doing that, if you're thinking about them instead of yourself and your number and your quota, even though that's always there, I think you're going to see better results sooner.
Sure. Wow, when listening to you, Matt, it's easy to see why leadership just kind of comes naturally to you, right? You really do have this, like you just said, all about the other person's perspective. So let me ask you this. When you look at your role as a regional sales manager and the leadership you demonstrated, and your role now as a director of clinical sales, besides the fact that you just have more responsibility as a director, what are some other, maybe more nuanced differences that you've had to adopt to be more effective as a leader, from regional manager to director of clinical sales?
Yeah, well, now I'm in touch with our company across all the departments, right? And so I think that trying to demonstrate or trying to balance, what's important to each department in and of itself, and then how those cross-pollinate with each other and what they believe they need from each other, if anything, right? Sometimes you get that, well, we're good, we don't need anything, or how do we cooperate and coordinate? And so I think it's about that. When I was a regional manager, I had 8 to 10 reps on a team, and I would tie in our clinical development person who was from another division. I would tie in our business manager who worked with accounts and IDNs and group purchasing agencies, right? I would tie in our other clinical team that was in the science department and on the clinical data side. But they all knew what their role was, and they all understood how they were supposed to help the rep. And the rep knew how to use them and how to partner with them and cooperate with them to help their territory and help their business and help their customers. And so there was always a high level of communication and a high level of cooperation. You have to have that. You can't you can't have your business manager come ride with you and go to health trust hospitals, 3 of them in your territory, without setting up exactly what is the purpose of this ride. I don't know how many times I've seen it, right? They'll schedule, look, I've got 3 meetings, come ride with me. And they bring them in and they go to the meetings and there's questions that come up and they don't know where to go or where to take it. And they'll leave the meeting without next steps in place. Well, that's because they weren't fully prepared, right? They didn't know what the goal was. What was the purpose of this meeting? What are we going to try to get out of it? What do we need to learn? And based on what we learn, how are we going to take it to the next level? And so now as a clinical director, as you go up, the chain, what I've noticed is I go from having that region team to now having, the entire sales force, responsible for their development. It's that there's 6 regions for us, and every region's different. And how are we coordinating that, right? How are we getting a shared message to all the regions while still allowing business entrepreneurs, which I like to call them, like every rep is a business entrepreneur in my mind, because they have a territory and it's their business. So they're running their business. So how do we give them the freedom still? Because they all have unique personalities, they all have unique markets, they all have unique customers. So how do we still align and cooperate on a message or cooperate on an approach or a strategy while allowing them to not feel micromanaged and to feel like they're part of a team, but yet they still have the freedom to be their own professional, their own business entrepreneur. That's a tough balance, but I think that's what you start to develop as a leader, ways to do that.
Gotcha. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, take us into your routine. How do you maintain all of this? Do you have a morning routine? Do you have some things that you do? Do you read often? Is there any kind of additional learning you give yourself to keep you on point? What is it that you do? How do you maintain? Give us the routine.
Everything and all the above that you just said. Yes, 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 yes. So more specifically, man, I mean, I'm in Scottsdale now, and we recently, moved out here. It is hot. All right, like it's 90 degrees at 6 in the morning. And so I'm up at 4:30, 5 every day, trying to get a little bit of fresh air, first of all. I was always an early riser because that's the time where you can, take some time to do whatever it is personally for yourself. The exercise, the breathing, the meditation, the reading, right? All that personal development, I think, is always best done alone, quiet, in the morning. So that's usually what I do. And then you dive into planning for the week and planning for the day, setting up the calls, working on your scheduling. And then, by 8 o'clock, then you're jumping into what you have to do, what you've got scheduled. And so, taking time, making sure that you've done that. And that can be, some people just aren't morning people. And so they do that at night. And so you try to balance that around, maybe it's after dinner with your family and there's a 2-hour block, where instead of watching TV or watching sports game, that's where folks take care of what I just said: the personal care, the workout, meditation, the reading, the studying, taking care of emails and setting up their schedule is done then. And then they wake up at 6:30 and they're hitting the street at 7:30, whatever it might be. So, it all obviously depends, but you mentioned learning. It's continual development for me. I'm always looking at journals. I'm always reading on websites. I'm members of whoever I can follow, the Hernia Society, on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm trying to understand what's going on in the industry at all times. And I'm constantly tied into what the competition is doing, and what's going on social media, and what's going on their websites, what new data are they putting out. It's just a constant information flux. And we need this in order to help. We just do. Like Samuel, if we're not absorbing as much information about what we do that we can, then how, when a rep comes and says, this is the objection I just got. The surgeon had a big bridge and they didn't have any muscle to cover the abdominal wall, and it was just skin and subcutaneous fat. And they didn't want to use our product because they thought that the biologic material wouldn't hold up. And so they wanted to use a synthetic, piece of mesh, for example. I didn't know how to explain that to them exactly. And there's all kinds of different ways that I help them understand how our material or how our device was purposely designed to assist in just that kind of procedure. But if I didn't have a deep understanding of how we developed it, what the source material was, where it came from, what it was made of on a cellular level, then I couldn't, we can help that surgeon understand that. And our reps are getting there, but these are the details that we go to, right? We go to a cellular level in med device to understand what is an implant doing, or what is a medication doing to a patient's tissues or their body or an organ that matters, And sometimes when we're doing this training, Samuel, people are looking at, why do we need such a deep anatomy background? What are we going into the science for? I never have a conversation about cells with the surgeon, right? Like, what are we doing, Matt? And I said, look, you may not. But it's just like martial arts. Martial arts experts may never have to fight. Right. But they're so confident, right? When they walk around or they get themselves caught in a bad neighborhood, they're not petrified. They're at some level confident they can handle themselves, and because they've been trained, because they practiced, because they studied. So that's what it's all about.
Excellent. That is fantastic. Well, Matt, this has been an amazing time to spend with you this afternoon. Go ahead and give us your overall philosophy, anything you'd like to just leave and share with people that want to get into the industry and people that are in the industry. Anything you'd like to leave and share with them today?
Yeah, well, look, be it somebody new in sales, use resources like what you're doing, Samuel. because I keep talking about learning and educating yourself, and you can't do that alone. And so I always had a mentor. So I've developed, well, part of my job here is one of the programs is a mentorship program. And I've implemented that across, our entire sales force. And it includes our leaders as well as mentors or mentees. So find mentors, right? Find programs where you can brainstorm, where you can get into a coaching course, or you can get into anywhere where people are signing up, taking a course, but they're working in groups. Because we always do team calls as well as one-on-one individual calls. The individual calls are to understand their specific business and what they need in their territory on a daily, right? But the team calls are opportunities for you to hear what success looks like from others, the obstacles that you get that now you can see others are also getting, right? And then you learn from that, and then you brainstorm on it, and you throw ideas back and forth. I mean, these mentorship programs or these round table discussions are vital. And so, our leaders, that's what we're doing with them. That's what we're doing with our sales force. If I were new out there, I would look for programs like yours, and I would say, can that help me? Can I find a mentor through Samuel? Can I engage with some of the other speakers that he's, brought to the podcast, for example, and maybe that's an opportunity for me to learn in the least. Let me reach out. And that's what it's all about. Make some connections. You're not on an island. And, in the medical device sales, when we have our own territory, that's a huge geographic territory of the size of like Scottsdale, for example. There might be only one rep in Phoenix. Well, you might feel like you're on an island because you're alone because you don't have anybody with you. But we always tell our folks you're not. You're a phone call away, a text call away, a video call away from 100 people in the company that you can reach out to. So don't hesitate. And I'd say it's the same for anybody out there, man, that's looking to transition from a job to our industry. Former athletes that I talk to that are looking to get into sales and looking to get into the med device arena, they talk to me about it as well. And I just think there's tons of resources out there that we can help them with, but they're not alone, and embrace it. Don't be bashful.
Thanks so much, Matt. This is great. And we'll definitely be catching up with you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Samuel. It was really fun.
And that was Matt Nover. Pretty fascinating career, and he's taken himself far in his career, and now he has so much wisdom to share with all of us. And I love the relationship he makes between leadership in basketball and leadership in medical device sales and what he does at TELA Bio. I mean, there's so many commonalities there. It's really nice to listen to. So you might be listening to this, and you might be someone out there that's thinking about getting into a career like this. I mean, TELA Bio is a pretty fascinating company. Even what they do is really interesting. And you might have heard this episode and thought to yourself, I really want to get in. What is the next step I need to take? Maybe you've been trying online and you've just been sending out your resume, hoping to hear back from a recruiter, or maybe you've gotten some interviews and you just can't seem to get to that final stage. Well, I want you to visit evolveyoursuccess.com and select attain a medical sales role. This is where you can find out a program that's specifically designed to help you get into medical sales space or position that you want to get into. And when I say medical sales, I'm referring to medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales, biotech sales, any sales field that's related to healthcare in the space. Come check us out, evolveyoursuccess.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn under Samuel Gbadebo. You can reach out to us with a message, and one of our client specialists will get back to you and teach you how you can get that much closer to getting the position of your dreams. Or you might be somebody that's in the field and you're looking for a way to really step up your leadership. You're thinking to yourself, I want to make different moves in my career. Well, again, you visit evolveyoursuccess.com and select improve sales performance and allow us to speak with you about a program that could completely transform your trajectory in your career right now, get you to that top 10%, top 5%, or maybe it's that you want to get a new promotion, or maybe that's you want to really establish your presence on LinkedIn and become an influencer and really be a thought leader in your space. Again, reach out to us, evolveyoursuccess.com, select improve sales performance. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that have had fascinating careers, have done amazing things in the med sales space, and want to share that knowledge with you. So make sure you tune in for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.